Have you ever tried playing over a blues only to find out you just don't sound very good? You don't like most of the things that you play? If you have, I've got 5 ways you can make your playing over a blues sound infinitely better. Hi, I'm Luke McIntosh from becomeabassist.com, and by the end of this lesson, you'll be able to break through any barriers in your playing when it comes to the blues progression, and you'll have a ton of new ideas to take your blues playing to the next level. Today's video actually comes from a question that a viewer named Conan left on another one of my lessons. The question basically boiled down to wanting to know how to approach playing over blues progressions. Which scale should you use, where, and all that sort of thing. I laid out my answer in the comments of that other video, but I wanted to share it with you as well as examples and all that sort of thing. I gave Conan 5 approaches, and I want to share them all with you as well. The first 3 I want to give you are kind of intellectual approaches, and the final 2 are kind of more organic. They work more by feel than anything else. Approach number 1 is the go-to for hordes of people when they start playing over a blues. It's the simple blues scale. If you don't know the blues scale yet, it's super simple. In the key of F, it's F, A flat, B natural, C, and E flat. And then F up the top as well. It looks like this, and here's what it sounds like. You've got the 8th fret on your A string, then the 11th fret on the A string, then you've got 8th, 9th, and 10th fret on the D string, 8th fret on the G string, and finally 10th fret on the G string as well. Whole thing. Just like that. Now you can play this scale over the whole blues progression, and if you decided to do that, it might sound like this. Yeah? It's just one sound over the whole 12-bar form, and it works super well. There are 2 drawbacks of just using the blues scale though. Firstly, it can get very boring pretty quickly. Without other sounds to break up the monotony, you run the risk of just putting everyone to sleep. The other drawback is that you have to handle it very carefully. Not all the notes of the blues scale are created equal. In fact, I created a whole video about this exact thing that you can check out below. So if the blues scale gets old pretty quickly, what do you play to break it up? Well, you can use the scales that go with each individual chord and play through with them. If we grab up our blues progression up here, this is a 2-5-1 blues rather than a 5-4-1 blues, because that's what Conan asked about in his original question. Now, if we were going to assign scales to each of these chords, we'd play F mixolydian over the F7 chords, B flat mixolydian over the B flat 7 chords, then G Dorian over the G minor 7, and C mixolydian over the C7 chord. Really, you can get away with learning just these 2 shapes, and you're all set. The mixolydian shape looks like this up here, and sounds like this on F. As long as your middle finger is on the root of the chord, you can plug this shape in anywhere and it's going to work. Oh, on the right chord, obviously. Now the Dorian shape looks like this and sounds like this on G. So if you know these shapes, you can use them to play over the blues. So let's get that track back. So we're going to have F mixolydian over the first chord. B flat mixolydian. Back to F mixolydian. G mixolydian, Dorian. C mixolydian. Oh, that's really hard to say, and let's go another round. I'll stop talking. Yeah, just like that. So I've got all those scales associated with all of those chords. Now obviously it works a hell of a lot better when I'm not trying to speak and talk at the same time. But do you see how that works? Now if you aren't super familiar with these modes, but you want to learn all about them, how to use them, where to use them, then I've got the perfect thing for you. It's called The Ultimate Guide to the Modes for Bass, and you can download it for free on becomeabassist.com. Just click the first link in the description, sign up on that page, I'll send it straight to your inbox. you'll never have to struggle with the modes again, and they'll really open up a ton of doors to your playing. I can't recommend it enough, so go ahead and download it. Now, the idea of playing these specific scales over these specific chord types is the kind of thing you'd learn in music schools and all that. It's a great way of thinking about how to get through different progressions and all that kind of thing. But the big drawback of using this method is that if you're not experienced with them, it's possible that you'll sound very academic, just like you're playing through scales, which is kind of what you're doing and kind of how I felt when I was playing that just before. Don't worry though, everyone goes through this at some point. It's totally normal. Just keep practicing and see if you can start using some of these other approaches as well. Alright, approach number 3 is using what's called guide tones to get through the blues progression. For this approach, you create a kind of skeleton map to guide you through the chord changes. Now you can make a guide tone line with any of the notes that make up the chords, but a really strong place to start is by using thirds and sevenths of chords. Now why the thirds and sevenths? It's because these notes are the ones that define the quality of the chords we're using. Our goal with these lines is to have smooth transitions between each of the chords in the progression. That means we'll rarely move by more than a whole step, by 2 frets, and sometimes we'll even stay on the same note for multiple chords. So let's make up a guide tone line now. Up here we have all the chords from the song in the order they appear. Let's start on the third of the first chord. That's the A of the F7 chord. Next, we want to smoothly connect one chord to the next, yeah? So what's the note in the next chord that's closest to that A? We actually have 2 options that are really close. The B flat is a half step above the A, but we also have the A flat, the 7th of the B flat 7 chord, which is a half step below the A. For us, let's use that A flat, because like I said, the thirds and the sevenths, they're usually the strongest when it comes to guide tone lines. When you go back to the F7 chord, obviously you'll go back to the A natural, right? So we're on that A. What's the closest chord in the A to our next chord, the G minor 7? This time we will use that B flat. Not just because it's the closest, but because now the B flat is the third of the chord. B flat's the third of that G minor 7. We'll stay on the B flat for the C7 chord, the 7th, and then finally back to the A on the F7 chord. See how we have this kind of mapped out now? We can use this to create lines and melodies that we know are going to work with the chords and also outline them because they use either thirds or sevenths on every chord. If you make the change from one guide tone to the next, as the chord changes, you'll hear that you've outlined the change with a single note. This might sound something like this. Yeah? The bits in between the guide tones, you can just use the notes from approach number 2. They'll work super well, or you could even try using your ears. Now the trick with this approach is making sure you nail the change between the chords as the change happens. If you can do this, you'll be off to the races. Try and make some more guide tone lines, and a quick tip, there's another great one that starts on the 7th of the first chord as well. For approach number 4, we're going completely counterintuitive. Most people think when they need to play over chord changes that they need to know every scale, every arpeggio, every minute detail. We've even gone through 3 approaches where that's all we talked about. Now sure, knowing that stuff is a huge help, but is it absolutely essential? Not really. There are plenty of great players out there who don't know their major scales from their minor scales. They just play what they hear in their mind, and that's approach number 4. Forget the scales and modes and use your voice to figure out what to play. This is probably the most organic way of doing things because you're not thinking that much. You're relying on your feelings and your gut. With this approach, you'll put on the track and try and record yourself singing some lines. Then you listen back to it and try and figure out what you sang. If you like it, then great. If not, then go back again and try. So if I try that with this practice track right here, it might look something like this. Get my first note. Da. Okay. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Something like that. Da 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 da. Yeah, something like that, yeah? The trick here is I'll try and sing something and then play that exact phrase back. This is actually a ton of fun. If you're just starting out, record yourself singing lines without even thinking about your bass. Then listen to the recording and try and figure out what you sang, and then transfer those ideas to the bass. The more you do it, the quicker the process will get until you can have an idea and it comes out of your bass almost automatically. Try not to be too critical of yourself during this process though. It's super easy to get down on yourself if it takes longer than you'd like. I actually talk about this process in more depth in another video of mine, and I'll put the link in the description below this lesson. The final approach number 5, is also a ton of fun. You simply learn what other people play over the same progression. Once again, this is another really organic process you can go through. You put on a recording, listen to what people are doing over a blues, and try and replicate it on your bass. Doing this will help you absorb the language of the music, and you may find that the people on the recording are using some of the approaches I've already told you about. You don't have to listen just to other bass players either. Steal ideas from all other instruments as well. It might be a bit tricky for you to find a bass solo over an F blues, but could you find thousands of incredible recordings of guitar players playing over a blues? Absolutely. What about saxophone players? Definitely. Keyboard players, for sure. If you want some specific recommendations for who to transcribe, there's so many. Check out any of the John Mayer trio recordings. John Mayer is actually a pretty serious blues guitarist. Steal his licks. If you want to go back further, you can check out some of the things that he checked out. Guys like B.B. King, Stevie Ray Vaughan. If you want to go back even further, check out Cannonball Adderley. He was a saxophone player who was super bluesy. Check out Oscar Peterson, piano player. Steal some of his ideas from him. Now, it doesn't really matter if it's not in the key that you're looking for. What you're looking to do is absorb the language. If you do that, then you'll be able to play that language in any key that you like. If you ever feel like you're just playing the same old things over and over, one of the best ways to inject some new ideas into your playing is by absorbing some new ideas from other people. These 5 approaches should be a good place to get you started, and I recommend giving all of them a try. If you only ever do one, your playing will be dull and predictable, but if you mix and blend all these approaches, you'll really see your playing come to life. It'll be more exciting, more dynamic, and you'll be a better bass player for it. Make sure to click the first link in the description to get the free Ultimate Guide to the Modes for Bass. It can be a real game changer for you. To recap really quickly though, you learned 5 separate approaches to tackling the blues. You learned firstly about the blues scale, then we talked about playing each individual scale for each chord. Approach number 3 was to create guide tone lines to find your way through the progression. Approach 4 was to create your own ideas by singing them and then figure out what you sang and transfer those ideas to your bass. And finally, we talked about transcribing other people's ideas and absorbing their language. Thanks so much for watching. I hope this has been super helpful for you. I'm Luke McIntosh from becomeabassist.com, and I'll talk to you soon. Have a good one.